Now, it's about time I laid my cards on the table, and God forgive me, Conrad isn't here this week, and in a way that might be for the best, because, to be honest, I'll float it by you first, Laura, and then we can see, get an idea of what his reaction might be from that.
Okay.
So, as I say, cards all on the table. I've got a Mr. Chimney Pot.
A Mr. Chimney Pot?
A Mr. Chimney Pot is what I've got. It's a Mr. Chimney Pot, and that is the thing that I have.
Okay, those sure are some words you've said, and
Yeah.
I've put them in the computer, and I'm looking at exactly what I would expect to see when you describe a toy as Mr. Chimney Pot.
Yeah, when you hear Mr. Chimney Pot, and then you look at Mr. Chimney Pot, I would wager, for anyone, it's not too far off.
I mean, looking at this toy, I couldn't call this anything but Mr. Chimney Pot.
Right? There's no other word for Mr. Chimney Pot than Mr. Chimney Pot.
Yeah.
So Mr. Chimney Pot. And I've got some questions regarding my recent acquisition.
I have questions too, yes.
Yeah, I can imagine. I had this as a kid. Now,
yeah.
Bear in mind, I was born in the early 80s.
Yeah.
1984. There were still gollywogs around.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, because this is a toy from apparently 1986, and we'll address Mr. Chimney Pot first. Mr.
Yes.
Chimney Pot appears to be essentially a doll's house, but if it was a chimney, and on one side there's doors and windows, but on the other side it's just a face.
Yeah,
because it's Mr. Chimney Pot.
Big red plastic chimney with, as you say, windows and door on the back and a face on the front, yellow nose, a smile, and these lazily lidded eyes that you can, and the eyelids can be moved up and down, so you can have eyes open, eyes closed, or doing a little wink. That's lovely, and it opens up, and inside there is plastic furniture, and there's certain segmented floors. It's like you say, it's a doll's house. Essentially, it opens up just like one, different rooms.
Yeah.
Lovely stickers for the furnishings. Now, the best thing about my Mr. Chimney Pot is it's so hard to find a complete set because the bits all go missing.
What a shame.
Yeah, and aside from a bit of a broken pipe at the top, because Mr. Chimney Pot has his own chimneys, and one of the chimneys at the top seems a bit cracked off, unfortunately, but the contents, the interiors, and the, shall we say, occupants are fully bagged. They're all still sealed, so that's a bit of excitement for me. Now, when I showed Mr. Chimney Pot off on stream the other day, one of the characters, one of the family members of that live inside Mr. Chimney Pot. Now, before we go any further, I'm going purely off memory, but I do believe the family's surname is Soot.
Yeah, so I will give a little bit of background very quickly. I'm looking at a picture of the box for this thing, and it's two very happy white children just really giving their biggest grins, with a little bit of text that says, "The giant chimney that's a happy home for the Soot family and their pets."
There we are,
and,
I remembered that bit.
Yeah, the Soot family, and that is a thing. That is a thing.
Yeah, so when I showed this off, there's also a big yellow teapot. My friend Mark reminded me of that. In wrestling, there's not many people who are my age. I'm sort of an old creaking bitch. But there is my friend Mark Adams, who does a lot of ring announcing and stuff, and he's one of the very few people in wrestling who actually gets my references. So for Christmas, I got him a Boglin. He and I can talk long into the wee hours about TV shows like Nightmare, and he reminded me of the Big Yellow Teapot, which is sort of the alternative product.
Yeah.
It's like a doll's house that's a teapot, but it's not anthropomorphized like Mr. Chimney Pot, so it's not quite as good. But anyway, I showed Mr. Chimney Pot off on stream, and when I showed a member of the Soot family, chat went quiet.
Yeah. Look, people listen to Podquisition. This is a toy from the 80s that had a family of people called the Soot family, and I don't think you need to be a genius to connect the dot to dots as to what might have occurred in 1986. That when showed on stream today might look a little, go, aha.
Yeah. So, all of that is to say that his nose squeaks. And I somehow forgot that until I was just looking it up right now to see if there was, like, I don't know, an article about the Soot family and whether or not that was controversial. But I've got it over here. I'm going to see if the nose still squeaks. Brilliant. So
that's been your week.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else that's happened.
No, that is the entirety of your week right there, is Mr. Chimney Pot.
I think that is easily the most dramatic thing that has happened to me. I'm not having an anxiety attack about anything else at all. How's your week been, Laura?
I mean, I've been real busy. It's been a busy one. It's been one of those weeks where it's like, hey, do you want some extra work to do? It's work that you don't want to say no to, but also it's all at once.
Ugh.
Go. It's been one of those, like, these are all great opportunities. I don't want to say no to any of them, but, like, I do have to do, like, 4 things at once. It's been a fun one.
Sort of that really sort of about as positive as stress can get, where it's like
Yeah.
you're super busy and stressed and under the hammer, but it is all very sort of positive work and stuff.
It's stress that I opted into, and I keep just telling myself, like, I wanted this. I asked for this. It's been one of those.
Yeah.
Should we talk about some games we've played recently?
Why not?
Some
Why
games?
not? I like I say, Conrad's not here, and I've got a potential that phone call I mentioned weeks ago that I left
Yep.
early for and was a month too early for the appointment. It's a month later, so I should be getting that call at the time of recording. It should be about 30 minutes from now. But what I'll do is, if we just keep recording, and then I'll get a phone call when I get a phone call, and you know we'll work it out from there.
We'll work it out.
Yeah.
Talking about video games we played this week, I'm gonna jump in first because on the topic of things that you want to be excited about, but then you have to talk about caveats with them.
Oh no.
I want to talk about Ragnarock, spelled R-O-C-K, like rock music. So this is a game that is part of the launch lineup for the PSVR 2, and I really enjoyed it right up until I remembered the genre of music that's being discussed and the homework that has to be required around that, but we'll get to that in a minute. Ragnarock is a VR drumming game. You have like 4 virtual drums in front of you and essentially like a cymbal to either side, and it's Guitar Hero in VR. You've got all the things flying at you, and when like the thing lines up with the drum, you hit the drum. And the gimmick is you're on like a Viking longboat and you're basically trying to do the drums so that the people on the boat row faster so that you get further in the length of time that this one licensed piece of music takes to complete. I will say I was surprised that all of the licensed music in it has been cleared for use on Twitch. So despite having a licensed soundtrack, it is a music rhythm game you can play on Twitch and not get in trouble for, which is like a surprise. I did not account for that. As someone who plays the drums intermittently in my own life, I thought this game did a really good job of simulating the feeling of drumming and capturing like note tracks that felt natural and just very intuitive for someone as a drummer. Like, the best compliment I can give this game in that regard is I felt comfortable pretty quickly turning the difficulty up fairly high and was able to sight read and play pretty well at tracks, which is a good sign that you've made a drumming game that is like actual drumming and follows the sort of understood rules of how your hands have to move in physical space to hit things. But let's talk about the aspect of it that's really unfortunate, which is this is a game with a soundtrack of largely metal tracks, specifically a lot of like Viking-inspired metal.
Right.
And also some pirate-themed metal.
Now, I will say this. Now, I've seen a lot of YouTubers come and go in my time.
Yeah.
And I tend to find that the ones that associate themselves very strongly with a Norse aesthetic tend to be on the level.
Well, see, this is the thing.
And I'm not being sarcastic at all.
Look, I was excited that there was a drumming game and I play drums and I got excited. And I didn't stop initially to think about the thing that now seems very obvious, which is, if we're talking metal as a genre, and very specifically metal that is stylistically aligned with a lot of Norse runic imagery, maybe just do a Google of some band names. There are 3 bands in this that are pretty fucking heinous, which is a real shame. The short version is there's a band called Glory Hammer that a text chain leaked between the band members in which it is very clear that they are violently misogynist and racist, like despicably fucking misogynist and racist. Okay. There is some overlap with band members in a band called Ailstorm who have racism controversies, and a band called Nano War of Steel that in their history have a bunch of like real fucking homophobic shit. Which is a shame, because I was really fucking enjoying this game, and there's a lot of music in the soundtrack that is, from what I can tell from having done Google searches of band names plus insert bigotry to do the checks, there is a lot of music in here that is from bands that are perfectly fine, but having to give the caveat that there's 3 bands in here that are full of just, like, despicable fucking human beings makes this a thing I can't easily recommend anymore, which is a shame. Because, like, the way I was feeling about it right up until that moment was like, oh, I'm actually kind of excited there's no Beat Saber at PSVR 2 launch, because it's gotten me to try this music rhythm game I probably wouldn't have given a look if not for the lack of the big music rhythm game for VR. And it's a shame, because it's a damn fun game that is really let down by the fact that it just uncritically has some tracks from some bands with some real problematic shit around them.
Yeah. And, you know, just for the record, just like it really upsets me that, like, Norse mythology and all of that shit, like, has become so associated with that kind of shit, because, like, I've mentioned this on podcasts before. I don't think I've talked about it here, but I know I've talked to Jonathan and Conrad about it on the various things we've all done together. But I had this book as a kid, an illustrated book about Norse mythology, and I wish I could remember what it was called or looked like, or it might have been a Ladybird book, I don't know, but I carried it around with me a lot. It was around the time I had a Mr. Chimney pot, actually. I remember spending a lot of time at my grandparents', and I remember having a Count Duckula plushie with it had hard plastic eyes. The amount of times I fucking bashed my teeth on that thing. Mr. Chimney pot and this book of Norse mythology, and I fucking loved it. And it's, in terms of mythology and sort of stories and aesthetic and figures from myth, it's probably the thing I've got the most affinity for because of that book. It's why Fenrir, for example, is like my favourite mythological character, because I read the story of him being tied to that rock, and something about it just sort of evoked something. Like, I just really liked that story. Like marked out when Fenrir was like a summon in Final Fantasy IX and stuff like that. But you have to be careful, because it's, you know, they'll lump you in with the people who you know, have Knight Templar images as their YouTube profile picture and shit like that. Like, it's Norse mythology and medieval times. Like, it's just been appropriated by assholes.
It's a real shame, because I was very much enjoying aesthetically. I'm on a cool boat flying through space into like a neon cathedral. Like, it was a cool aesthetic experience, and then I was like, oh yeah, I forgot Nazis fucking love this shit. So yeah, take that caveat about some of the bands that appear in Ragnarok, because it's a real shame. Like up until remembering to Google bands, I was gonna like really sell this. What about you? What have you played this week?
Let's see. There have been a couple games came out which I'm planning to do a like review stuff on. Octopath Traveller 2 came out.
Yeah,
played that.
How's it going?
It's good. Yeah, it's largely the same.
That is what I've been hearing.
Yeah, like very much the same.
It's why I've not picked it up. Is I wanted to like the first one more than I did, and I'm like, if it's more of the same, it probably still not going to be for me.
Now, I loved the first one. I also 100% understand anyone who didn't. Any of the criticisms people have, I'm like, you know what? It's either a taste thing or it's something I didn't mind but completely understand others sort of not being thrilled with. So yeah, this will not change any minds whatsoever. It's largely the same, and there's good and bad elements of that. So it's, yet again, turn-based RPG, 8 protagonists, the same classes as last time. So you've got the dancer that does a lot of buffs and things, and you've got a cleric that does cleric shit, thief, hunter, warrior, apothecary, which is a sort of a amalgamation of a bunch of support classes, and the scholar, which is the magic class, and the merchant, which is always the best class, because everything in the game is expensive, and the merchant makes the money. So I could see where they've tried... Well, the way they've tried to make it look like they've enhanced it just comes across like they've tried to make it look like they've enhanced it, and it's not actually all that enhanced. For example, in the original game, every single character class, every character, because it was tied to the character, not the class, but every single character had a unique ability. It was really 4 abilities shared, but one was a sort of virtuous version, and one was a sort of roguish version. For example, you can, in the original game, the merchant could buy items that NPCs had, or the thief, if they were a high enough level, could steal the items instead.
Yeah.
The apothecary could talk to someone to learn stuff about the town and get various passive benefits. The scholar could scrutinize them. And the trade-off with these was, if we use the merchant thief thing for an example, buying, as long as you've got the money, or in some cases meet the level requirements, it's a guaranteed success. If you do the rogue version, there's a percentage chance, which can go up to 100%, and it's based on your level. So it's like, I could be at the right level to talk to this person, or there is an 80% chance of scrutinizing them. I can take the risk to get it early. And that's how it's supposed to work out. Sometimes it really did end up to where it's like, this isn't fucking worth it. I've never really quite... Every time I've tried the merchant buying instead of stealing, I got burned, because sometimes it's more expensive than you can sell it for and stuff like that. And the thief required so much leveling to steal anything, and it wasn't massively balanced. But yeah, largely it was, you could challenge people to duels for basically no fucking reason. You could steal or buy, you could scrutinize or talk, and you could hire an NPC to follow you around by either being the dancer and seducing them, or being the the cleric and sort of shepherding them. In this one, they've tweaked it a bit. So largely every character gets their original... they're different characters, but they're the same roles. So every character type gets their original thing. And sometimes they've been tweaked a bit, sometimes to be more useful, sometimes not so much. Additionally, The game has it's not a day-night cycle. Basically, you can turn the world day or night at a press of a button. And that changes the skills each character has, each of these NPC interaction skills. That's exciting, because now everybody has 2 abilities. And I'm like, wow, this is I wonder what cool, interesting ideas they... Oh, wait, no, they're just other versions of the existing ones. So now you've got, 4 choices to do the same thing instead of 2 choices to do the same thing.
So you've got nice daytime, naughty daytime, and nice evening, naughty evening.
Sort of, yeah. Yeah, sort of. And some of them are just so fucking useless. Or at least I currently don't see the point, such as information gathering. The apothecary during the day can still talk to people. The scholar can still scrutinize people. Additionally, you can interrogate people as the cleric, because he's an inquisitor, which is a one-on-one battle in which you've got to break the opponent's guard. Which, so long as they're vulnerable to holy magic or the club weapon, you can do it. Otherwise, jog the fuck on, come back when you've multiclassed. Additionally, the warrior at night can bribe NPCs. Bear in mind that, let's say 70% of the things you learn from NPCs are just fluff.
Yeah.
I'm not dropping 1,000 leaves on someone to find out that they're, a fisherman's wife or something like that. It's just, some of them are wildly expensive. And yeah, that's... Some of them just seem so unnecessary, and I'm not sure why it is. And I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't take the opportunity to do literally anything new.
Yeah.
Some of them are at least have a little bit of a quirk. For example, getting an NPC to follow you around. Now, again, last time the cleric and the dancer could do it. This time, the cleric, the dancer, the hunter, and the merchant can do it. I forget what the merchant does, but you hire them by offering them jerky, which you get by capturing monsters and turning them into jerky or other foodstuffs, which is kind of an interesting little mechanic. Dancer still does her alluring to basically seduce them, and the cleric still shepherds them along. The merchant hires them, and some of them are fucking expensive, but they sort of come into their own and pay for themselves, because NPCs that the merchant hires have a passive ability that makes you or saves you money. And that's interesting.
Yeah.
It does mean that if you find a really good one, you're set. I'm sure I'll eventually run into someone better, but I've hired an NPC that I never bring out into battle because I don't want him to go away. And he's useless anyway, doesn't do anything. But he gets me, it's between something but up to 30% extra money whenever I sell anything. And I know there are other ones that do even better, or a better window, a better percentile. Wildly expensive. But that's cool. That's interesting. Yeah. That sort of... And I think that the guy I hired has more than paid for himself now.
Yeah.
And things like, if you collect money from enemies in battle, you can have an NPC that gets you more, or one that gives you there's a 1% chance to buy an item for free. And I'm sure there are better percentage, but I've never seen one better than 1 at the moment. But yeah, that's at least interesting. Yeah. They've changed the way the warrior duels work. The cleric investigation thing was an added version of that. In Octopath Traveller, the hunter could challenge people to fights, and the warrior could challenge people to fights. And most of the time that was useless, but sometimes helped if there was an NPC that was blocking a door that you couldn't get rid of any other way. Here, you can challenge them to a duel as the warrior, you can interrogate as the cleric, I guess that counts, provoke with the hunter, or there are 2 non-combat versions. The thief can ambush them and just knock them out without any fighting, And the apothecary, if you've got the required ingredients, can create a little sleeping draft and make them go to sleep. That's neat. That's cute. But I do like that they've made the warrior specific one, just unique to that character, actually really worthwhile. To the point of almost overpowered. This time, you don't get fuck all if you challenge someone to a duel. If you challenge someone to a duel with the warrior and win, every NPC, which has always been for like hiring purposes when you use them in a fight, but every NPC has a special attack that has a weapon type attached to it or a magic element type attached to it and some special ability. If you beat someone with the warrior, you can learn that ability and you can equip up to 5 of them.
That sounds so much more valuable.
It is so much more worthwhile because it gives you access to weapon types without needing to multi-class. So, the warrior starts with the spear and with the polearms and swords, but you can fight someone who uses a staff or a dagger and take their ability. And when you attack, you'll get that weapon type, which is really good for breaking enemy defenses because you do that by attacking them with whatever they're weak to. What I love about it is I currently have an ability that's better than the scholar's actual gimmick. Oh, he can mug people, by the way. That's another one-on-one fight thing. Instead of just stealing with the thief or getting the dancer to just ask people nicely for it, which is another new one. The scholar can just mug someone, and that's sort of funny for a bit. But yeah, I've got the scholar's has analyze, basically, that old RPG ability where you can find out what an enemy is weak to, which is really useful in this game. If you don't want to trial and error it to find out what weapons and what elements are going to break an enemy's guard. Use analyze, and you'll learn one weakness. Or if you use the Bravely Default style stocking thing, you can learn more.
Yeah.
My warrior beat someone with the ability Deep Analysis, which by default unveils 2 weaknesses and then an additional weakness for every time you do the thing. So my warrior
is better at analysing than your dedicated analyzer character.
Yes. Now, the trade-off is that the scholar has a passive to automatically learn one weakness every time a battle starts. Yeah. But I'm currently not using the scholar. I just don't care to.
Yeah.
And as a result, I just don't. I'm not swapping out the warrior, I've forgotten all of their names, but I'm not swapping out the warrior because the deep analysis is so fucking good, and that's on top of being able to give him all sorts of other stuff like buffs and multi-hit attacks, and on top of his existing warrior skills and stuff, just really good on what was already a really good class because of just the sheer amount of physical damage output. But yeah, largely I'm disappointed with they've just doubled up on what was already there. The stories themselves are... Here's where I said about it making it look like they've given the appearance of enhancing the experience without doing all that much. It was said this time, because one of the big criticisms last time was the 8 different stories didn't interact very much. It was 8 very different separate stories that the other characters were just party members for.
Yeah, they
were
just stood in the room for.
Yeah. And I was hearing they've changed it this time. Now there's more interact. There's not. I have played for hours and hours and hours, and everything is still completely self-contained, except last night I unlocked a chapter that had 2 characters in it. That's the compromise. It's not that they're all more involved in each other's stories. It's that you can unlock chapters that involve 2 characters, which is better than the original.
I mean,
it's just for those who wanted more. It's not going to scratch the itch they had in particular.
It's not what I was hoping, but it is closer to what I was hoping.
Yeah. Now, by the same token, I understand there are 8 characters to fully voice and rewrite things. to account for whatever different party makeup you have, that's a lot of work.
I get that.
Yeah. Oh, shit. Sorry. They've called me early.
Okay, that's all right.
I'll be back as soon as I can.
No worries. Let me know when ready.
Okay. Hello? Yep. That's me. Hiya. Sorry about that, everyone. Just had to take a phone call. It was that thing I mentioned earlier, the nut allergy. Yeah. Good news. I did indeed test negative for a nut allergy.
Yeah.
Bad news. He still told me not to eat any. He said there's too much, because it's not fully reliable as a test. It's not like 100% gospel. Plus, there's a lot of cross-contamination with nuts. Plus, the fact I've had anaphylaxis makes me a very high risk factor anyway. There is a very high risk that I could still go into shock if I have peanuts. So I'm very sad, but
Despite the fact that on paper you don't have an allergy, you totally have an allergy, please don't eat them.
Yeah, I think it's basically he, not in as many words, but he more or less said, I can't tell you can't eat peanuts, but if you do, you are not suing my ass.
Yeah.
It was basically that. He literally at one point did say, look, I'm not saying you won't be able to eat peanuts safely. Not safely. Basically, he just said, I'm not saying you will definitely have a reaction. You might be absolutely fine and not allergic, but
I wouldn't eat a peanut if I were you.
Basically it came down to I wouldn't. Which is fair. I knocked it on the head when I had my first proven reaction to my evil stepdad blamed me when I had my first nut allergy reaction to some pistachios. Yeah, the rash was because I was dirty, you see.
Of course.
He was a bit fucking weird.
Sounds it.
Yeah, luckily, no one ever took advantage or exploited me or abused me in my adulthood, so
never,
that was fine.
Yeah.
I'm kind of gutted. I was looking forward to, because Wednesday is a day I stream just before yourself, and was looking forward to having Stephanie's Nut Day, where I would just eat nuts on stream, and it would be a nut bang, and it would be great. But I have had anaphylactic shock. I have been hospitalised with a nut allergy. It was one of the most traumatic, acute trauma situations I've been in, and I do not care to repeat it.
I wouldn't risk it.
No. So unfortunately, the dry roasteds are going to have to stay on the shelf. But Octopath Traveller 2.
Yeah.
I don't know where I was, but basically,
You were saying about you get that there's reasons technically why there's not more interweaving this, and all I was going to say to that was I get technically why that's the case, but also I've played games with similar numbers of NPCs that have dialogue that accounts for the order you pick them up in.
Yeah.
Mass Effect, Xenoblade 3. I can name a few. It's not that it can't be done.
Yeah. And you can, create a good illusion. They do the travel banter already. It's not voiced, but, in between story scenes in a given chapter, two party members, a random party member you've got will talk to the main star of that chapter, and they'll have a little bit of banter about what's going on, and that's, cute. They could have done it, and they elected not to, and it's... I wouldn't say it bothered me as much as it did bother others. I kind of just was like, you know what, fair enough. I will say that the problem here is Octopath Traveller, the first one, was just a lovely little experience. And because this one is just doing so much of the same, a lot of the sheen's worn off. It's not that any of it's bad, but
it's just that it's not the only game that looks like that anymore, and the character gimmicks aren't novel, and
and it's just after having done it once in a game already, and these games being as long as they are, like going into a new village every single time and going up to every NPC and running through all of your interactions to get the most out of every village, and then doing it again at night, which you can't just, interact with the same NPC at day and night. Obviously, the NPCs move around, and some are only available at night and some aren't, and, just there's so much fiddly management if you worry about getting the most out of your party.
Yeah.
And on top of that, like, things are a little less laborious than they were. I feel like things are easier to buy than they were in the original game. Things are still prohibitively expensive, but making money is between all of the new characters, between all of the abilities, things are a little easier to either get off of NPCs or sell to make money. So I'm not feeling like it's quite as grindy as before. That's good.
Yeah.
The level requirements, the jump in level requirements between chapters 1 and 2 and 3 have been brought down some, so I don't feel like there's a level barrier between chapters so much. Things like thieving and stuff like that. I am using the thief a lot more than I did the last time, so she has been leveling up, but it just seems easier in general to just get hold of items and stuff like that. So it's a little less grindy, but it is still a slow game. Every enemy is subject to this game mechanic, which is pretty cool, but 20 hours in, you get tired of breaking enemy guards. Find out which weapons this enemy is weak to, and then hit them with it until they're vulnerable, and you can deal some actual fucking damage. And so many fights are just so long that it's a drag. And I was fine enough with that in the first one. The second game adding so little of convenience. And the stories are hit and miss again. Like, watching it with Phoenix in the room, I'm sometimes secondhand embarrassed. Because while there are some good plots and there's some really fun voice acting and stuff, some of the writing is so infantile and banal. Like the merchant story, I like the merchant character, just this sort of friendly, old-timey prospector voiced kind of guy. Well, not old-timey, but that sort of prospecty mining town kind of guy who's trying to eliminate poverty from the world. And it's such like baby's first socialism that misses the point of a lot of it. And it's so... Look, I am all about kicking the shit out of mustache-twirling capitalists. But there's such a naivety to it as well, to this.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's not even that the capitalists are mustache-twirlingly evil. I think I've learned enough about the world to understand that, no, there is no nuance to that. They are just evil. But just the broad stroke simplicity of it, of, this one capitalist is evil, but this one good capitalist with a heart of gold can make it all better. Like, it's on the cusp of stuff where I want to be like, yeah, right on. But I'm there with Phoenix and they're watching it just being like, this is some of the most insipid writing I've ever seen. And they're not wrong. Some of it is embarrassingly written. But then, the thief story, Throne's story, I remembered her name. Hers is quite good. She's part of this sort of gang of thieves that were brought up by these figures called Mother and Father, who seem to be like some world-class perverts. They collar all of the kids and make them sort of, treat them like shit and whip them all the time. And the mother character is particularly sort of skeevy with it. And she's, Throne's sort of going to assassinate them both and like get free. And that's been pretty cool. The dancer is Agnia, She's the one I started with because I started with Primrose in the first one. Hers is good just because there's nothing serious about it at all. It's like this game's version of the first game's merchant story. Like, she just wants to be a star. And so she's traveling the world to make her name as a dancer, and it's very cute, and her in-game naivety is quite nice. So it's very hit and miss. I will say the one really good thing is they do have another character class that isn't tied to a character, as far as I can tell. And I didn't know it was in the game, but there was a house just on the way to a town, and there's an inventor inside. And he gives you the subclass inventor, which I whacked on Agnia. You get a little top hat with goggles on it, like a proper little steampunk garb. And you, instead of learning skills the traditional way, you gather components to bring back to the inventor for him to invent a new machine. And there are these glass cases in a sort of museum that lists what you need. And when you bring them back, he will invent it, and then that becomes the inventor's latest skill, which is really kind of neat. Like, I gathered enough sort of elemental stones and a bottle and brought them back, and he made a bomb that will hit enemies. So long as you know an enemy's magic elemental weakness, the bomb will hit them for that damage, which is kind of neat. And then there's a catapult that you can fire at all enemies that will deal damage based on the weapon type you load it with. Just neat stuff like that. So that's cool. And I hope to see more stuff like that. But so far, it's basically the same game with some bells and whistles that are kind of the same bells and whistles, but rearranged. I do like it. It's still baseline a quality fucking game. I love what that team does. I forget the name of the studio. It's not Tokyo RPG Studio, is it?
No, I've forgotten as well.
Yeah, they did Live a Live and all of that. Like, I love their output. And
I've loved some of it. Live a Live I really enjoyed. And I want to enjoy the Octopath games.
Yeah.
I get what they're doing.
And it looks gorgeous. I mean, I could be wrong, but it feels like it looks even better than the first one. Like, it feels like the animation is just that little bit more detailed, and like, I love the way every character like looks when they run. Every single one looks completely distinct. Square Enix in collaboration with Acquire. That's the devs. Square and Acquire. But yeah, I really like it. Really like it.
I'm really glad.
I'm a lot more critical of it. Like, I think I gave a Jimquisition award to the first Octopath Traveller. With Octopath Traveller 2, I've seen everything that I gave it an award to already. Like, the stuff that surprised me, I've seen now. And it's not done a lot to add
to step
to that.
back up to that pedestal,
And it's playing through it, having played the first one recently as well. I'm just more aware of the more tedious elements. But I would. It's worth, if you loved the first one like I did, at the very least I can say I like this one. And there we are.
Well, in that case, I'm going to rattle through some games.
Oh, absolutely.
I got some to get through. There's one I'll probably talk about a little more than the others. I played a really interesting demo for a game this week called Humanity, which, just as a side note, I really hope this game doesn't like completely fly under the radar, because it's the worst name for a video game to try and Google. Because even if you Google Humanity game, you get Cards Against Humanity. Like, getting this game to show up in Google, like, I had to go Humanity game PS5, I think, to find it. Humanity, from the demo, seems to be, what if Lemmings was a critique on capitalism and the way that it views human life as disposable. It is a isometric Lemmings-style game where you play as a little ghost dog that can put down, like, you know, little things on grid spaces in the world that will tell these this endless supply of humans, turn this way, jump, do a long jump, things like that. Tell them instructions that will get them through these levels.
Uh-huh.
Unlike Lemmings, you have a literally infinite supply of these things. You are not punished for your lemmings dying. They are a disposable resource. They are a resource that initially I was trying very hard to not have any die. I would restart the level to make sure that was the case, and as the demo went on, it became apparent that the level design was going to force you to use them as disposable, and that was narratively relevant. As you get further in, you start getting these big golden humanoids, and the objective of level stops being getting your masses and masses of humans safely to the end of the level. It becomes get your big crowd of humans to reach that gold humanoid, because they'll only move with the crowd, and get the big gold person to the finish line safely. Any humans who die along the way to make that happen, collateral damage. The way that it builds its mechanics to reinforce its narrative feels very gradual and very it's a little in your face, but in a way that because it isn't saying the thing, it doesn't feel too heavy-handed, or at least as heavy-handed as it could be. I really enjoy a lot of the puzzle design of these environments. They all make me think of Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, in that sort of little enclosed diorama that you just have to turn around and look around and go, cool, I understand all the facets of this. Go make my little set of instructions that's going to get everyone safely where they need to be. The narrative seems interesting. I toward the end of the demo, it starts introducing groups of other humans who are grayed out, and you cannot let your big gold human touch them, because they will get swayed. They will no longer be one of yours. They'll get taken away from you, and maybe you're going to have to start killing groups of other humans through puzzle design to safely keep control of this very valuable figure. It's interesting. It plays really nicely, and one of the things I love about it is I've said this for years. I want more games on modern consoles to take advantage of the fact that modern computing power means you can throw fucking thousands of objects on screen at once if you don't make them too high detail, and have a bunch of physics simulated objects doing their own thing. And this really leans into that. It throws huge numbers of little tiny humans around doing their thing, and makes the sort of sheer scope of how many people you're trying to micromanage at once comes across very well. It has some really clever level design. It's out in May, I think, and what I played of this demo has me really excited to play the game when it comes out. It is available in VR or not in VR. The VR mode was really nice, but I don't think anyone would lose anything by not playing it in VR. But yeah, it's called Humanity. It's from the development team that did Tetris Effect Connected and Res Infinite, which had my attention straight away. And yeah, they got me on board with this. Some other bits to very quickly rattle through. I started playing a VR game called Tentacular. It is a game where you play a giant cephalopod in the ocean, absolutely huge. On the day of your 16th birthday, your human sister gives you the devastating news that you're adopted, that you are not a human, as you've always believed. You are a giant cephalopod. Time to go learn to make your way in the world as a big squid with squid arms. It is silly, it is charming, it has a great sense of humour. It's one of those VR games that it drops you in static positions and doesn't make you move around a lot, which works really well for VR comfort. It is very satisfying from the middle of your arm upwards, just having tentacles to grab stuff with. And the physics around how your tentacles work are very satisfying. It's real charming. It seems like it's going to be about 5 hours, which feels about the right length for the kind of thing it is. And lastly, I played some of the VR port of Resident Evil Village that dropped last week, and That game looks gorgeous in a good VR headset with like HDR. Being in the dark with a torch held in my hand was some of the best like darkness and lighting I've ever seen in a video game. It's a real shame that every other aspect of this video game feels this VR port feels entirely rushed and not thought through at all, and like it just had to hit release day and that was the only caveat. Some examples. Anytime that you're crawling on the floor or knocked to the ground, what happens is my body from the neck down was underground and only my head was above the ground, and that was very weird and disorienting. Sometimes in cutscenes, if you're trying to look at subtitles, and there's an object in front of you that's too close, the subtitles will appear doubled and on top of each other, because if the subtitles get too close, you can't, like... They're too close to make a single point of focus, and they just break. The movement speed and the acceleration are not at all tweaked from the default game that was not designed to be played in VR.
Oh, that's what you want.
Yeah. Non-VR movement speeds and acceleration speeds do not play well with VR.
No.
There is no thought to like having options for like teleporting around as they did in like Resident Evil 4 VR. That's a port that exists. It's just like a really disappointing port, and it's a shame because it looked really cool holding a torch in the dark. It was very cool. I couldn't play it. What about you? You played anything else this week?
Yeah. Excuse me. Kirby came out as well on the same day as Octopath Traveller, so that was a big old day.
I didn't know New Kirby was out.
Yeah, Return to Dreamland Deluxe. Yeah, it's what it is. It's a redo of Return to Dreamland, which was a wonderful game. I'm trying to jog my memory on the fly. Before I write the review, I want to sort of reread the stuff about the original just to make sure I'm remembering it right. But if I recall correctly, this came after Epic Yarn and just a bunch of Kirby games that were kind of playing around with the formula and stuff.
Yeah.
Or at least the aesthetic, and just doing very different to traditional Kirby. And Return to Dreamland, as its name suggested, was like old-fashioned Kirby. Let's just do an old proper Kirby. And I remember loving it at the time. And it's still really good. It's Kirby. Like, it's what it is.
Kirby is one of those series that you can just repackage me another game that is a Kirby game every now and then, and I'll have a great time. It's just a very comfortable series.
Oh yeah, like I don't talk about Kirby a lot these days, but I guess there's not a ton of Kirby stuff to talk. Well, there was the Forgotten World, which I actually didn't care for as much as a lot of people did. But you know,
I remember.
I used to be very well known for my my love of Kirby, and whenever there's a new Kirby, it's got my attention. It just makes me happy. Whenever a new game comes out, if you're in the same house as me, you will guarantee you'll be able to guarantee hearing me like scampering about going "Poyo!" many times in sheer giddy round excitement. It's just a delight. It looks fucking gorgeous.
I'm excited to see the new content in it, because I remember really enjoying this one when it came out, and I'm aware that there is a new little story thing with some new gameplay, and I don't know enough to know whether that's like post-game unlocked or what.
Yeah, this is where I'm going to have to like properly like research to, because I can't remember things that happened 5 minutes ago, you know, let alone like, God, was this a Wii game? Wii U?
I think it was it maybe? I think
something
so.
like that, like ages ago. Can't remember a lot about it. But so I can't say with 100% what's new and what's not at the moment without...
The thing I know is new is I've forgotten the character's name. The little wizardy.
Mr. Magoo.
Yeah, there is a Mr. Magoo little story mode that is new.
That I have not seen. I've seen the theme park.
I was guessing you'd probably have to get to the post game to get to the Mr. Magoo stuff, but yeah, there is that's the thing I'm excited about is like that seems like it's going to have different gameplay mechanics, and that seems interesting.
Yeah. I'm right at the end and need to finish it up before doing my review writing. So I'll be able to know about all of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the as far as I'm aware, the theme park stuff's new. It's got a whole bunch of sub games in it, which I believe they're not new because they are in the story mode as well. But a bunch of sub games you can play against the CPU or friends. Just silly gimmicky shit. Like there's a weird sort of Bomberman-esque thing where you're deleting bits of floor in a long line to get the other players to fall through the holes, or a timing game where like a bomb is being thrown around and you've got to time your hit with a frying pan to knock it to someone else, like hot potato basically.
Yeah.
Little games like that, and they earn you little stamps for playing each game and doing well in each game, and that unlocks the most important part of the game, which is the masks. So there's a whole bunch of masks that Kirby can wear, some of which have their own unique sound effects and replace Kirby's voice. Some of them just, well, don't. But, you know, you can wear Meta Knight's mask. Actually, there's like 3 different Meta Knight masks. One of like all the regular, all of the game's bosses. Like you can wear a Wispy Woods mask. King Dedede, of course. Some of them are nice little references. There's you can wear a mask of the Roboto from Robototo or whatever it was, the robot from the DS game. The sexy cheetah lady from Forgotten Land is in it. You can wear a mask of Kirby's face when he eats a traffic cone from that game as well. Also, last night I unlocked a mask of Kirby's face. So you can just wear Kirby's face over Kirby's face.
Oh, that's charming. That's perfect.
I didn't think much about it when I unlocked the yellow and the blue one. But then I unlocked the pink one and I was like, what the... Oh, it's just his face. So that's cool. And like I say, some of them have unique sounds that play instead of Kirby's... usual, like little giggles, and if you press the right stick in different directions, Kirby does a little animation and it'll play any voices that are attached to the mask. That's the most important part of the game, because I am a sucker for that shit. Cosmetics and silly little dress-ups and things, I'm all about it.
My favourite one of those is still Yoshi's Crafted World, where you get the little cardboard outfits to, like, that Yoshi had to hold up around their waist.
Yeah, I love shit
sucker.
like that. You know, I make the point all the time about how it's just cosmetic was never a justification for microtransactions, because to me, cosmetics are gameplay. It's part of the gameplay. The reason I'm playing so many of those fucking mini-games is to get masks. That's the point of the whole game now. There's also a fun little online mode, because one of the mini-games is basically just seeing how quick you can press a button. It's like a samurai standoff, Kirby on one side, someone else on the other, and a prompt will come up to hit a button, and you hit it. And then, you know, whoever hits first wins. It's like a duel.
Yeah.
They've got an online mode where 100 Kirby players are basically... Like, it's not in real time, but everyone's time once a day is logged, and then it will just put you against 99 people who have logged their times. And then you press it, and there's a neat little animation of Kirby just sort of carving through dozens of other Kirbys, all of them wearing, like, whatever mask the player was wearing at the time as well. So it's, like, all these little masked Kirbys, and you fly through them until you hit your record. My highest so far is 76. I've gotten 76 out of 100. And you get just a shitload of stamps for that. You can only do it once a day, but you get a shitload of stamps, and then you can get masks. Brilliant. It's the point of the game. But yeah, quality. It's an absolutely great mask collection game with a good Kirby game attached to it. Yeah, I'm glad of it.
Neat.
Yeah, hopefully we get like things like Triple Deluxe made as well.
Yeah. I've got 2 other games to very quickly talk about, because this is the penultimate week of Laura's Playdate Corner.
Must be nice. So it must be nice. Must be nice.
It is.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
So there's only one more week left after this of season 1 of Playdate games. So this week's games are Forrest Byrnes, Up in Smoke. Byrnes being Byrnes because it's a surname. And Battleship Godies. I'll talk about Battleship Godies first. I need to work out how
What's
to
it
explain
called?
this game. Battleship Godies.
Godies.
Godies. Yeah, I'm as
Okay.
perplexed by the name as you are, but
Yeah.
I'll talk about this one first. Imagine a side-scrolling ship shooter, but the gimmick is you have a limited number of bullets that bounce around like you're playing Breakout or Arkanoid or whatever, and you have to catch them on their return to be able to use that bullet again. If you don't catch the bullet back, you don't have that bullet for future shooting at the various ships you're trying to hit.
Okay.
And I make the sort of Breakout Arkanoid comparison not just for the reasons of having to catch be where your bouncing projectile is. A lot of the ships you are trying to shoot down are deliberately designed to be in a Breakout stage where you've managed to carve a bit of a gap in all the bricks, and you're trying to get your thing to bounce all the way up, and it's going to be in there for ages, and it's going to go miles along this sort of route you've carved. A lot of the ships are designed like that, where there will be a long, winding route to the core of the ship you're trying to hit, and you're trying to fire your bullet so it ricochets along the route, hits the core of the ship so it explodes, and then you go catch your bullet when it comes back. It is pretty tricky, but I like the concept. I like what it's trying to do. One of the things I appreciate about it is that if you are damaged and lose a life, you can use the crank to rewind that playthrough you were doing and pick exactly where in that run you want to restart from, which is really appreciated. You don't have to redo the whole level if you had one bad moment. But you can get into situations in this game where you have no bullets left to fire, and you haven't been destroyed, and the only way to restart is to deliberately fly yourself into a ship and take damage and lose a life, so that you can rewind to a point where you still had access to that last bullet. I wish that you could optionally rewind, or even if it took a life up still, I wish you didn't have to go crash yourself in those situations. But it is a neat little novel idea, and it is way more of a positional puzzle than these sort of side-scrolling shooters tend to be. It focuses a lot more on there is maybe 2 or at most 3 ships on screen at once, and you have more time to sort of be a little thoughtful about how you interact with them. The other one that dropped this week was Forrest Byrnes, Up in Smoke, which is just Shovel Knight reskinned to be about a person trying to fight forest fires.
Okay.
Or not fight forest fires, run away from forest fires.
Far braver.
Yeah. So you are some kind of park ranger in your little park ranger uniform, and you've got a shovel, because I did tell you, it's just Shovel Knight. And you have these little puzzly levels that seem to be procedurally generated to some degree. They're all fairly short, self-contained levels. And there is, on the left-hand side of the screen, fire is coming and it's moving to the right. You have to get all the way to the right-hand side of the stage to get to the helicopter to be rescued. Hopefully rescuing children and collecting little collectibles along the way. It is possible to not collect children. There is very real possibilities in this game of children just burning alive in a forest fire if you're not good at the game.
Brilliant.
Yeah. But when I say it is just Shovel Knight, in Shovel Knight where you have the shovel and you bounce on the shovel to get extra height on the jump?
Yeah.
It's got that.
Okay.
It's got, sometimes there'll just be dirt walls in front of you. You use the shovel to sort of dig through. You can use the shovel like a melee weapon to chop down a tree to have a thing to cross a a bridge to cross over some water or something. It's just reskinned mini procedurally generated levels of Shovel Knight with a time pressure because there's fire coming. And I don't dislike it, but I can't get away from how brazenly just Shovel Knight it is. It's what if we made a Shovel Knight offshoot mode where there was time trial pressure, go do our quick little level we made. And I don't dislike it, it just... It's a weird one to... I feel weirdly about it. But yeah, that was this week's Playdate games. I've played some more of them. They continue to be nice.
Sounded like it must be.
Yeah.
Sounded like it must be.
Hey, you played anything else before we rattle through some news?
Yeah, well, briefly. I know it's sort of mostly been re-released for VR purposes, but I had memories of it, so just downloaded and played it without VR because it's VR optional. But the re-release of Fantavision I've been playing. The old firework matching puzzle game, which I couldn't remember a damn thing about. In my mind, it was a rhythm game. But I'm beginning to think I might have been imagining something else. Because I think there was some sort of fireworky rhythm game on Xbox Live in like the early 2010s. And I might have... Because I remember like classical music or something being played. Whereas this is very much a puzzle game with a sort of a trippier sort of feel to it. But either way, I vaguely have a clue what's going on. I... did watch the tutorials that are in the game, but they are so boring. Just like plain text with basic images and the world's most bored woman voicing the instructions. So I ADHD'd my way out of paying attention, so I'm still kind of piecing it together. But essentially, you sort of have this little target fixed on screen, you point it at fireworks as they come on the screen, and your cursor will zip over and capture the firework, and then you can zip to other ones. The idea is to get a chain of the same coloured fireworks captured in a row, then press the detonate button to make them go kaboom. There are rainbow fireworks as well, which, you know, can be used in place of any colour, and then there are these little like power-uppy icons and things. I think I know how to chain multiple different coloured fireworks together and actually get them to detonate, but I'm not fucking sure. I made my way through easy mode and hard mode, both. There isn't a normal mode, but I have played through both modes and, you know, survived. So I must on some level know how to play it. But for the most part, like, it really is just pointing, capturing, hammering the detonate button and hoping for the best. It's fine. Visually, it's very nice, and with the amount of fireworks sort of exploding in the foreground, I can tell like just how much this was released to capitalise on PSVR 2 coming out. Did make me realise that VR ultimately is just like 3D for people that want neck problems.
I mean, for me, it's... the ADHD is going to make me get distracted. Shove me in a thing where, like, the video game is all there is.
It's just cramming it in. Just Ludovico techniquing video game into your head.
Yes.
Fair dues. Yeah, it's Fantavision. It's clearly not the thing I was thinking of. But I do remember Fantavision being a thing. And it's been a nice little distraction. There's not much to it, but it's neat. I could see people getting a fair bit out of it if they play it with VR, if they're into VR stuff. Yeah, that's about it for me.
Well, in that case, should we rattle through some news quick?
Yeah.
Because there's been some of that this week.
Oh, good.
Oh, fun. So we got to start by talking about the producer of Final Fantasy 16. Who we haven't talked about in a couple of weeks. Do you remember we last talked about him when he was like, "Oh, there's no black people in Final Fantasy 16 because medieval Europe realism or whatever."
Fucking hell.
Oh, okay. So, have you heard anything about Final Fantasy 16's accessibility settings?
I saw you talk about them, like, was it on Twitter you were tweeting about them?
Yeah. So here's the... We'll start with, like, the thing that came out, which is that Final Fantasy XVI has some accessibility options, things like auto-evade, one-button combat, things that are, like, explicitly there to make it easier for people who struggle with the real-time action gameplay to be able to play. However, there are 5 of these accessibility-focused settings. They are rings. They are equipable accessories.
Yeah.
There are only 5 accessory slots available in-game, so you can't use all 5 of the accessibility settings at once, and they're the same accessory slots that you would otherwise be putting, like, buffs and character modifiers that would help you, like, help your character be better statted. You are having to sacrifice those to access these settings. It's not good.
That's amazing. I've been working on a Jimquisition about mostly addressing the critics of accessibility settings, because that's sort of where the focus of my show is. With this, like, and I made this point on a Podquisition a few weeks ago, I think, and I am going to make it in the video as well. One of the things I love about accessibility settings is, because no developer is going to want to look like an ableist piece of shit, unlike with cheats, they ain't going to disable trophies and achievements. It's a free lunch if you're lazy like me. So... That's not to say, I just want to quickly add, before anyone thinks, like, I do genuinely benefit from accessibility settings with my various neurodivergences, so I'm not just saying, like, I'm...
No. Yeah.
But I just enjoy the secret sense of power I get knowing they can't disable them or they'll look like shit. Then this game came along and did stuff like this.
I was gonna say, like, really hold on to what you were saying about, like, developers not wanting to look like ableist pieces of shit with regards to how they handle stuff. Like, the story I have in the docket isn't even about these settings. It's about why they exist, because there is an interview over on GameSpot conducted by Steve Watts with Yoshi P talking about why the game is the way it is. And I'm going to read you, like, the headline and the subhead of this article, because it's... I couldn't believe it when I read it. Final Fantasy XVI producers' pride as a gamer influenced a new take on difficulty settings. And here is the quote they have as the subhead. Do you want to change the difficulty to easy? I hate that. I have my pride as a gamer and I hate that. Just fucking, like, all out on the table. I fucking hate easy modes. Easy modes are fucking bullshit. I have my pride as a gamer and I hate that.
Oh, that is a rallying cry for nerds everywhere.
And look, I read through this whole thing being like, maybe it's out of context. Like, my hope was that it would be, I feel this way when I play games, but I respect that other people don't feel that way. You know, that's what I was hoping for. But no. I consider myself here it is. I'm going to be 50 years old this year. I consider myself a gamer, and I have my gamer pride. When playing a game, you always get to that one part in the beginning where it says select your difficulty, easy, medium, hard. And again, I have my pride as a gamer, so I'm never going to choose easy. I'm always going to choose medium or hard. But then, when you die that first time and it says, do you want to change the difficulty to easy because you're struggling? I hate that. I have my pride as a gamer and I hate that. He mentions his pride as a gamer 5 times in one paragraph. He uses the phrase, my pride as a gamer, 5 fucking times in a paragraph.
That is pathetic. That's fucking pathetic.
Yeah. And it's even more pathetic because he's got further to dig this hole. So, like, he goes on to basically say the reason why they've done these settings as rings that take up your equipment slot and that you can't equip all of them is, let me read this. The game still had to feel like you were playing the game. We didn't want it to be fully automatic. We wanted to have the players still feel like they're participating in battles, and not only participating in the battles, but having fun in the battles as well. At the beginning, we're going to help you out, but once you've gotten used to the controls and have confidence in your abilities, then you start taking away those hand-holding ones and start putting the ones that power you up, that you have, and start focusing more on your actual abilities. So yeah, he doesn't want you to use accessibility settings for the whole game. He wants you to be like, to grow out of needing them.
Right.
Yeah. I'm so exhausted by this, man.
Is...
It's real fucking bullshit, right?
I'm stunned.
It's so much worse. Like, every time you go, that's got to be the worst, he said. He just keeps going.
What an infantile man.
Yeah.
It's Final Fantasy as well. Like, it's not fucking wizardry.
Yeah.
Like, it's not fucking... I don't think I've ever played a Final Fantasy game thinking, oh, I can't wait to be challenged. Like, sure, if there's challenges in it, like, You know
what annoys me particularly about this? We just had a Square Enix, like, big AAA game release, Forspoken. Many of these things were in an accessibility menu. Square Enix recently released a game that had several of these things just available as explicitly labeled accessibility settings without any caveat required to use them. It's not like there isn't someone at Square Enix aware of this. The things that you can have assistance for, you've apparently got a dog. The dog can have auto commands, so you don't have to worry about controlling the dog at the same time as your character. Slow down time before an evadable attack, like give you a bit of slowdown so you can go, cool, a little bit of help doing the dodge. 1-button combos, if you struggle to, do multiple buttons in combination. Auto dodge, and auto use potions when you're at reduced HP. Of the ones in there, 1-button combos, auto dodge, and auto potions were all accessibility settings in Forspoken.
Yeah.
In the accessibility menu. So, like...
They've made an accessory
for
auto potions.
Yes.
Which, in some games, isn't even an accessibility setting. It's just a setting to not be fucking inconvenient.
I've seen some people, like, getting shitty going... Oh, no, don't, like, hold these to the standard of accessibility settings. They're not accessibility settings, they're just difficulty things. I'm like, no. These are literal settings that are often found in fucking accessibility menus. They are things that, like, 1-button combos is the one I keep looking at and going, I do not see a world in which you offer 1-button combos for any reason other than to help people play who cannot play with multiple buttons or struggle to play with multiple buttons. That's not a thing you just get over, like, 3 hours into a game.
Yeah.
Really. Like, that's an accessibility setting that you decided to make, like, you can only use it if you give up having boosted magic or whatever other ring you were going to have on.
This is one of those things where it literally, genuinely would have been better if they hadn't fucking bothered. Yeah. Like, you know what? Yeah. Like, I think accessibility settings are a net positive, incredibly good. Do I think they should be in every game? Yeah, I do. Yeah. If you as a developer, for whatever reason, whether it's your pride as a gamer or whatever, don't want to put them in, I can't make you, and that's your creative right, but this is worse.
I'm gonna think less of you.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna think less of you, and if I can't play your game for whatever reason, then you know what? I ain't gonna play your game. Whatever.
Yeah.
Don't need it that bad. I don't need any single game that bad to make myself force my way through something that has been made in a way that I do not have the ability to get through it. Whatever. But this is a case of, like, it would have been less controversial if they'd have not had accessibility settings at all.
I expect Square Enix games generally. I expect Japanese developed Square Enix games to just not bother. And here, they did, but they were like, no, we have to, like, you just couldn't help it.
Yeah.
You couldn't help making it a thing.
It feels quite genuinely insulting. Like, it's been designed as an insult, and that's the problem, where it really is like, I play games, increasingly, games have had accessibility options, but I still play games today that don't have many or even any, for the most part, and while I love seeing them, I don't get angry or anything if I don't see them. But with this, it's like, no, this is going the extra mile to not put them in. This is putting them in a way that deliberately fucks you if you use them.
It's putting them in a way that not only fucks you if you use them, but also says, we don't want you to use them.
Yeah.
We would like you to not use these features. We made these features, but we'd really, really rather you didn't because of all of our gamer pride. So, yeah. Also, just like side note, particularly considering this is a single player game, there's literally no fucking excuse. I forgot to mention it. I played a beta for a free to play shooter this week called Sector's Edge. It is an online multiplayer competitive shooter that has an accessibility setting that turns off the sound, but visualizes sound as color to make sure that deaf players can tell where sounds are coming from and what colors, like what sounds they are and how close they are and volume.
Yeah.
Like if games like that, if like competitive ranked online multiplayer games can work out ways to make themselves accessible to more people, just fucking, if someone's playing a single player RPG, let them turn on every auto command they want. It literally doesn't hurt anyone.
Yeah. And I'm still just, there's a lot to unpack with this.
Yeah, right.
Pride as a gamer is like up there. The very nature of it is of their accessibility accessories is, you know, baffling and insulting.
Yeah.
But just this idea, the founding idea of this, that people are playing mainline Final Fantasy games to stroke their ego about being a good capital G gamer. Like, that is so, like, because of how obsessed I've been with Theatre Rhythm lately, I've been going back through other Final Fantasy games and things. You know, I've been playing through 8, a bit of 15, bit of 12. Last night I started 9 for the upteenth time. And I'm thinking about these games I've played for decades now, and the idea that I would have played a single one of them for the same reasons I'd play something like Bloodborne.
Right.
Is beyond stunning to me. I have never once picked up, replayed Final Fantasy IX thinking to myself, I can't wait to have my pride as a gamer tested. No!
Yeah.
I want to see the cute little wizard with the pointy hat. I want to see Kuja's hips swaying near that metal codpiece. Jonathan. That's what I want to see. I'm not playing fucking Final Fantasy fucking 9 to have my fucking pride tested as a goddamn fucking gamer. Laura, come on.
No. Trust me. I fucking know.
Ridiculous.
And you know what? This was just, for all the problems I had with Forspoken really gave me a false sense of hope this year that I was like, is this the year that Square Enix like catches up with a lot of the rest of the games industry and works out accessibility as a thing? Because Forspoken was surprisingly good in that regard, and I don't tend to expect that from Square Enix, but now I'm like, don't expect Square Enix to actually reliably know what they're doing there. So yeah, we got a couple of other stories quickly. We don't have to go into huge depth on this one, but surprising no one, Atomic Heart got a bunch of old racist cartoons in it. I say a bunch. As far as I'm aware, there's one old racist cartoon in it.
Atomic Heart.
Yeah, Atomic Heart.
Now, bear in mind, when I talked about No Pagodi last week, the Russian cartoon I used to watch, I cannot vouch or approve of any of the content that may or may not have been in the Russian cartoon No Pagodi.
Yeah, so one of those New Pagodi cartoons features a real fucking racist depiction of a black person.
I am, however, completely unsurprised to hear this about New Pagodi.
Right. According to a quote given to PC Gamer, the Mundfish team said, "Thank you for bringing this lack of sensitivity to our attention. We apologise if using the vintage cartoon or music has caused hurt or insult. We will edit the parts in question." Like, not apologising for the racism, being like, oh, but what if the cartoon or the music, like, really being like, oh, we don't know what was offensive, but if something in that general area was offensive, we're sorry about that.
Sorry you're offended.
Yeah,
No,
we'll change it, we're sorry.
So I did decide to just drop playing Atomic Heart. It was, just the whole thing's too sticky. So I'm like, you know what, move on, play a bit of Kirby. There's, very little racism in Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe.
I've never personally heard Kirby utter a slur.
No. Not a direct one.
Yeah. That's a step above what can be said of some games.
Yeah.
We got Beyond Good and Evil 2 news. That game it still exists.
Yeah.
So how everyone's talked about all the bad things at Ubisoft are over, they're done with now, there's no more bad things at Ubisoft? Yep. Beyond Good and Evil 2 studio is reportedly under investigation for unprecedented burnout and sick leave.
Jesus.
Yeah, so this is Ubisoft Montpellier, is being currently investigated by the... I'm trying to find the Montpellier's Inspection du Travail, which is a agency that basically looks into making sure workers' rights are maintained, has reportedly had a lot of claims of an unprecedented number of developers experiencing burnout and going on long-term sick leave. According to the website's sources, who were unauthorized to speak about the issue and wish to remain anonymous, dozens of developers, including many leads, have taken extended leave for stress or sickness over the last year, with some choosing not to return, a situation leading to a visit from the French Labour Inspection Office back in December. That visit resulted in the hiring of a third-party entity, which now has to go around and interview a bunch of Montpellier employees to basically go, look, you're allowed to talk to us, how much are you getting fucked over here? Ubisoft is, hand-waving it away as nothing. The health and wellness of our teams is an ongoing priority. Given the length of the development cycle with Beyond Good and Evil 2, the Montpellier development team is undergoing well-being assessments through a third party for preventative measures and to evaluate where additional support may be needed. Yeah, it sounds pretty fucking bad in there. So yeah, Ubisoft hasn't fixed its shit yet.
No. What a surprise. It's almost like facing absolutely no fucking consequences for being a monster has not encouraged the monster to stop being a monster.
Yeah, it's almost like consequences would maybe be required to get anything to change.
I'm starting to realise that if people faced consequences, there'd be a lot less people being shit.
They might stop doing the bad things
stop.
If things were bad as a result of what they did. Yeah. Another one we can just really quickly fly through. EA's laid off 200 QA workers, people who worked on Apex Legends.
Yeah, I heard about those.
Yeah, it was during an unscheduled Zoom call. They were informed they were losing their jobs effective immediately during an 8 a.m. Zoom call. That basically the entire QA team, the entire Apex Legends QA staff is just gone, and EA was asked for comment about these layoffs and didn't directly comment on them because of course it didn't. Their Weasley sort of thing was, as part of our ongoing global strategy, we're expanding the distribution of our Apex Legends testing team and ending testing execution that's been concentrated in Baton Rouge, impacting services provided by our third-party provider. Our global team, inclusive of remote play testers across the US, enables us to increase the hours per week we're able to test and optimize the game and reflects a commitment to understand and better serve a growing community around the world. All of this bullshit to be we fired 200 people with no warning. Yeah. That's shitty.
That reminds me, I've got some emails to get back to about that shit.
I've
spoken at length on this podcast and on the show about layoffs and how we're in this sort of sick little cycle where they're just an expected part of business and we're supposed to think it's normal and okay when it's, normal and okay are not the same thing. Apex is such a hugely successful thing thanks to Apex Legends and all of that as a property. And no amount of success stops these things from happening. In fact, success often leads to layoffs because, as I've explained many times now, they've got to keep up the illusion that they're making more money infinitely every year, forever. So if they've made as much money as they could conceivably make, they've got to cut to keep up the grift. And that cut starts at the bottom. The executives are not going to consider taking a pay cut. They just won't. It's sick. And I think, QA departments in particular get so much share, to the point where part of me wants to be like, we've started to see QA departments unionize. Is this some sort of response to that? But historically, QA departments get treated like this all the time, so it really is just par for the fucking course.
Here is what I will say. It does sound from that EA statement like they are laying off these QA workers to instead hire remote work from home QA workers.
Right.
And it's harder to form a union if you are not in an office with the other people you would want to unionize with, if they are other remote workers that you do not see.
Yeah.
And that you can only communicate with perhaps through company channels. And I wouldn't put it past anyone.
Yeah, considering how much business pushes for in-office work, to the point where, so many jobs that could be done from home are obsessively pushed to be in an office by twats. It is weird that they'd instigate all these layoffs to hire at-home workers, because on the surface, that sounds like a good thing. Without the layoffs, we want our teams to work from home sounds good. Then you add that they laid off a whole bunch of people to do it, and then it starts looking fucking shifty.
Exactly. But yeah, that is what it is. The only other thing this week to end on is Rovio has pulled Angry Birds off of Google Play entirely and renamed it and hidden it on iPhone to make it harder to find. Have you heard about this?
No.
No, okay. So Angry Birds doesn't exist on Android anymore.
Okay.
And it only exists on iPhone as Red's First Flight, so that it will be harder to find.
Okay.
In a statement, Rovio suggested the reason for this is that the original Angry Birds is simply too popular, and that players are too happy to spend the app's one-off 79 pence price, rather than download the brand's many free-to-play sequels and spin-offs which contain further microtransactions. Yeah. Let me read you this quickly. The quote. We have reviewed the business case of Rovio Classics Angry Birds, and due to the game's impact on our wider games portfolio, we've decided that Rovio Classics Angry Birds will be unlisted from the Google Play Store. Additionally, the game will be renamed to Red's First Light in the App Store. We understand this is sad news for many fans, as well as the team that worked hard to make Rovio Classics Angry Bird a reality. We're extremely grateful to the Angry Birds fans who have shown their love for the brand and this game from the beginning. We hope that those fans can continue to bring that passion to our live Angry Birds slingshot games such as Angry Birds 2, Angry Birds Friends, Angry Birds Journey, where our goal every day is to craft the best possible experience for players. They want to push people over to the microtransaction ones, because 79p for a game you buy and have, don't cut it anymore.
I mean, it speaks volumes about how little value the other ones must have, where it's like, yeah, I can just buy and play the first one. I don't need any more Angry Birds than that. You'd think that would tell them something. Well, I mean, it did. It told them to fucking hide it, I guess. That's amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah. This week has had some fucking bonkers stories.
Yeah.
It's had some wild ones. I'm glad I could bring these terrible things to your attention.
Yeah, I saw you mention Angry Birds in the podcast chat, and my eyes glazed over because I saw Angry Birds.
Yeah, no, it's...
That's incredible.
Yeah, no, a game that people like and are purchasing and makes money and people enjoy. Yeah, we can't let you have that. We can't let you buy it, though, because, like, we want you to buy the thing you don't like as much that's more expensive.
I want the thing full of microtransactions, because it's not enough to just make money. As something else, I've said for many years.
Yeah.
Not enough to just make money. Got to make all of it.
Got to make all the money.
All the money. That's... wow.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So that's this week. We did it.
Yeah.
We're done.
Okay. Well, Rovio might be hiding their content, but Laura, I know you are singing yours from the rooftops, and if you'd like to perform a verse.
Well, if I must, I can be found at Laura K. Buzz pretty much everywhere. Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, Patreon, YouTube. Patreon's the one that pays the bills, patreon.com/Laura K. Buzz. That's what allows me to keep doing this. I Twitch stream Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays in theory, 10 p.m. UK, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. I've got a book, it's called Who Hunts the Whale. If you listen to this show, you should probably read that book. Go read the book. Comrades at that Comrade Zimmerman on things? I'm trying to remember Comrade's promo now. Comrade's not here today, but that Comrade Zimmerman on Twitch?
Yeah.
The Twitter might just be Conrad Zimmerman, but I know the Twitch is that Conrad Zimmerman.
Yeah, the Twitter's at Conrad Zimmerman.
Yeah.
He still uses the Fist Shark Patreon, doesn't he?
I believe so.
He says it every week.
I'm second guessing.
We got two people with ADHD here trying to repeat something we've heard every week.
Well, see, that's the thing. The problem is I've done my rehearsed script, and then I'm like, everything that comes after that is just mental blank because I didn't have to say those words.
Yeah.
Search Conrad Zimmerman, you'll find him.
It's Conrad.
Yeah. What about you, Steph? Where are you?
Red Planet. He's got that podcast, Red Planet, as
Yeah.
well. Check that out. You can get to my Patreon at patreon.com/Jimquisition. That pays for this show, and it pays, of course, for the Jimquisition show, which has been on a real tear lately. Our latest episode called How AI Takes the Artist Out of the Art.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful
really
work.
proud of it. Phoenix did amazing new graphics for it because, obviously we've changed... made some changes to the people who I associate with. So yeah, he's done a whole bunch of new graphics, and the editing was myself for this and the last week's show. Really, really proud of it. So check that out. My video game reviews can be read at thejimquisition.com. Make sure you add thejimquisition.com. I also stream, obviously with having to do so much more work on these shows with those changes. I've not been able to stream as much as I want, but I stream at Twitch TV/Jim Sterling. You can check me out there. My current confirmed wrestling dates are March 18th in Blackpool. That is PCW. I'll be at their Women's Road to Glory tournament. Huge milestone for me to be in this women's tournament. If you can get to Blackpool on the 18th of March, do please. It is going to be a momentous night for Commander Sterling. March 25th will also be huge. That's in Leeds, and that is True Grit Wrestling. It's going to be Commander Sterling versus Priscilla, Queen of the Ring. We are a great tag team, myself and Priscilla. We are even better as opponents. So that is just going to be a great match. I have many other bookings yet to be announced, including 2 massive ones in May and August. They are just going to be immense, so I'm excited about them. But until then, thank you all so much for everything, for all of your support, especially lately. I really do. I've had a lot of really nice well wishes and stuff about all of the recent stresses and bullshits that's going on. Thank you all so much for that, and of course for the Patreon support. Couldn't do it without that. But yeah, thank you. We will see you next week, and Conrad should be here next week and all settled in. So we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.